News and just in, President Obama said moments ago that Russia's troop buildup in Syria is, quote, doomed to failure. The remarks at the president's town hall meeting with the military members there. The president said his administration will keep the pressure on Russia as that country continues to send troops to Syria. This comes as we get word that the Russians are not just helping Syria's murderous dictator, they're now co-leading the bloody war against the Syrian men, women, and children. That from intelligence official to our team at the Pentagon, which today broke news of a secret deal involving Russia, Syria, and Iran. We've reported on the buildup of Russian troops and supplies in Syria, something that has American officials so concerned. The Secretary of State John Kerry called his Russian counterpart twice this week. Now we're learning that more about what's behind this Russian troop surge. Intelligence officials tell Fox News the buildup began days after a secret meeting in Moscow between Iran's military commander and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Our Jennifer Griffin first exposed that meeting back in August. Now, intel sources tell us parts of that meeting involved Iran and Russia teaming up to support the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. Of course, he's the ruthless leader who's killed hundreds of thousands of his own people, who's murdered innocent families with poisonous gas. According to one human rights watchdog, the death toll in Syria's civil war is closing in on 250,000 people. Now the killer behind it all is getting a big boost thanks to his pal, Vladimir Putin. Jennifer Griffin with the news in Washington. Jennifer, the president went on to say that he believes that this is a sign that Assad is getting more and more nervous, that he's losing this conflict and reaching out to the Russians for help. But if they are helping, that's a problem, isn't it?
Well, Shepard, Western intelligence wasn't quite sure at first why the shadowy Iranian Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani had gone to meet the Russian defense minister and President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on July 24th. We were the first to report it, as you mentioned, but our sources told us it was, at the time, it was to discuss arms deals, even though Soleimani was barred by UN sanctions from traveling. Now, multiple Western intelligence sources tell us that the Russian military buildup that we're seeing right now in Syria is the result of that meeting, and that the two sides discussed working together militarily to bolster Assad. The Pentagon has tracked an 8th Russian Antonov transport plane landing in Syria just today alone. Shepard.
Hey, Jennifer, any official reason for this Russian escalation in Syria and the partnership with Iran?
Well, the official reason, the Russians say they've been doing deals with Syria for quite some time. What we've learned is that there are now at least 1,000 Russian fighters sent to Syria in recent days. These are not advisors. Even Ukraine's president has expressed alarm.
These days, green men are landing in the hundreds in Syria.
I'm told that the Russians who are now on the ground in Syria, some of them even tweeting out these selfies of them on the ground there, are members of Russia's elite special forces, the equivalent of U.S. Army Rangers. Oddly, the State Department continues to publicly downplay the reports.
I don't know that I would call it a buildup. It's unclear exactly what some of these military activities are all about. I don't know that we're ready at this point to call it a buildup necessarily.
Israeli security officials have been quoted saying Qasem Soleimani and Iran have sent hundreds of fighters into Syria in recent days as well to work with the Russian chef.
That's weird. We don't want to call it a buildup, but Jennifer, it's a buildup by any definition. What help us understand that?
Well, what's very strange is there's been a disconnect from what we've heard at the podiums, both here at the Pentagon and State Department. They've been downplaying this for several weeks now, even though we keep pointing out the buildup of Russian troops and forces. Today, it's interesting that the president finally, in this troop talk at Fort Meade, acknowledged the Russian troop buildup and said that his officials will be continuing to reach out to Russia, and he said it would be, quote, doomed to failure. Today, we heard the State Department spokesman say that Russia could join an anti-ISIL coalition, but they should not support Assad. Right now, it's very clear that Russia is not listening to any of these pleas from the State Department not to get involved further.
Yeah, that's crystal clear. Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. Jen, thanks so much. Same thing they did with Crimea. The Russians went in, took Crimea. Now they're trying to get a land bridge. And